Everyone in that mansion lived in fear. Not of the billionaire, but of the woman he was about to marry. Servants whispered her name in trembling voices. Some quit without notice. Others begged to be transferred. She was cold, untouchable, and merciless. But then, a new maid arrived. Poor, quiet, and completely unaware that one single act of kindness would change everything. That I and the heart of a luxurious estate, where crystal chandeliers sparkled and marble floors echoed with silence, fear ruled more than wealth. The billionaire's fiancée was known for her icy stare and ruthless commands. No one dared to look her in the eyes. No one dared to question her mood. To the world, she was elegance and power. Behind closed doors, she was a storm. Every maid before had failed. Some were fired. Some left in tears. So when a new maid walked through those massive iron gates, the staff knew one thing for sure. She wouldn't last a week. But they were wrong. Because this maid didn't bring fear into the mansion. She brought something no one expected. Humanity. And what happened next would expose painful secrets, buried trauma, and a truth that would shake the billionaire's perfect world forever. Hello, dear listeners. Thank you for joining me today. Before I begin my story, I would be very happy if you subscribed to the channel and left a comment writing which state or country you are listening from. It always warms my heart to see how far our stories travel. My name is Amina, and this is my story. I live on the edge of a city that never seems to notice people like me. A city filled with shining towers, expensive cars, and dreams that only belong to those who can afford them. I am not one of those people. I wake up every morning before the sun rises, in a small rented room with cracked walls and a leaking roof. The paint is peeling, the air is cold, and the silence is heavy, but it's the only place I can call home. I have learned not to complain. Life never listened anyway. I lost my parents when I was young. Since then, the world has felt like a place where kindness is rare and survival is everything. I took whatever work I could find, cleaning houses, washing dishes, caring for strangers who never learned my name. Still, I believed in one thing. That being kind costs nothing. And sometimes, it's all a person has. The day everything changed started like any other. I was standing outside an employment agency, clutching a worn-out bag with my only clothes inside. My hands were shaking, not from the cold, but from fear. I had just lost my previous job. Too slow, they said. Too quiet, they said. Not good enough. I had heard those words my entire life. Then a woman in a sharp black suit stepped out of a car so expensive I didn't even recognize the brand. She looked at me the way people look at broken things, quickly, without interest. "Can you work as a maid?" she asked. I nodded instantly. "Yes. I can do anything." She didn't smile. "Follow me." That was how I entered the mansion. Tall iron gates opened slowly, as if warning me that once I stepped inside, nothing would ever be the same. The house was enormous, more like a palace than a home. Marble floors reflected the ceiling lights. Chandeliers hung like frozen tears of crystal. Everything was perfect. Too perfect. And yet, something felt wrong. The silence wasn't peaceful. It was afraid. Every servant I passed kept their head down. No one spoke unless spoken to. Even. Their footsteps were cautious, as if the walls themselves were listening. I wanted to ask why. But I didn't. Poor people learn early when silence is safer than questions. Then I saw her. She stood at the top of the staircase, dressed in elegance and authority. Her posture was flawless. Her eyes were sharp, cold, and distant, like someone who had built a fortress around her heart. "This is her," the woman beside me said nervously. "The new maid." The billionaire's fiancée looked at me. Not like a human. Like a test. "What is your name?" she asked. "Amina," I whispered. She didn't respond. Instead, she turned away and said, "Make sure she understands the rules." Rules. There were many. Never speak unless spoken to. Never look directly at her. Never make mistakes. Never ask questions. And above all, never show weakness. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay on a narrow bed in the servants' quarters, listening to the sounds of the mansion, doors closing softly, distant footsteps, the echo of loneliness. The other maids warned me in hushed voices. She fires people without explanation. She doesn't forgive mistakes. She enjoys fear. One woman looked at me with pity. Don't get attached. She breaks people. I nodded. But inside, something didn't feel right. Because when I looked at her eyes earlier, beneath the cold and cruelty, I saw something else. Pain. Deep. Untreated. Lonely pain. The next morning, I made tea. My hands trembled as I carried the tray to her private sitting room. One wrong move could end everything. She sat near the window, staring outside at a world she seemed disconnected from. I placed the tea gently and stepped back. She didn't touch it. Minutes passed. Finally, she spoke, her voice sharp like glass. "Why are you still standing there?" "I just wanted to make sure the tea is to your liking, madam," I said softly. She laughed. A cold laugh. "You won't last long," she said. "They never do." I felt my throat tighten. But instead of fear, I felt sadness. So I said something no one ever dared to say. "I'm sorry you feel that way." Silence. Her head turned slowly. For the first time, she looked at me, not as a servant, but as a person. "What did you say?" she asked quietly. I said, "I'm sorry," I repeated. It must be lonely, being feared all the time. I expected anger. Screaming. Punishment. Dismissal. But instead, her eyes flickered. Just for a second. And in that second, I saw the woman she used to be, before the world taught her to be cruel. That was the moment everything changed. I didn't know it yet. I didn't know that my kindness would awaken buried memories. That my presence would threaten secrets no one wanted revealed. That the billionaire himself would soon start watching me with suspicion. All I knew was this. I had crossed an invisible line. And there was no turning back. This was only the beginning. I didn't sleep that night. Not because the bed was uncomfortable, or the room was cold. But because her eyes haunted me. That brief moment when her cold expression cracked. When something human flickered behind the fear. People like her weren't supposed to look broken. They were supposed to be powerful. Untouchable. Yet I saw it. And once you see pain, you can't unsee it. The days that followed were slow, heavy, and suffocating. Every morning, I woke before sunrise. I scrubbed floors that already shined. I dusted furniture no one ever touched. I worked silently, carefully, like someone walking through a minefield. The other servants avoided me. Not because they disliked me, but because they were afraid. Afraid that standing too close to me might cost them their jobs. "She's watching you," one maid whispered one afternoon as we folded linen. "Why?" I asked quietly. "Because you spoke to her like a human." That sentence stayed with me. Spoke to her like a human. Wasn't that what we all were? She tested me every chance she got. If the tea was too hot, she stared. If it was too cold, she stared longer. If a cup was placed an inch wrong. Silence. A silence so loud it felt like punishment. But she never fired me. Not once. And that scared the others even more. One evening, I was assigned to clean her private sitting room. It was unlike the rest of the mansion. Cold colors. Dark walls. Heavy curtains. No family photos. No warmth. Just perfection and emptiness. As I dusted a bookshelf, a framed photograph slipped from behind a row of books and fell to the floor. My heart stopped. I bent down quickly, terrified. The glass hadn't broken. I exhaled in relief. Then I saw the picture. It was her. Younger. Smiling. Holding the hand of an older woman, perhaps her mother. She looked happy. I didn't realize I was staring until her voice cut through the air. Put it back. I turned. She stood in the doorway. Watching me. I'm sorry, I whispered. It fell. She walked toward me. Slowly, her heels echoing against the marble floor. That photo is none of your business, she said coldly. I know, I replied, carefully placing it back. But, you looked beautiful. Silence. I braced myself. But instead of anger, she looked confused. No one here compliments me, she said. They fear me. Her voice wasn't sharp this time. It was tired. That night, I cried quietly into my pillow. Not for myself. For her. Because I knew that loneliness. The kind that doesn't care how big your house is or how expensive your clothes are. Loneliness that lives inside you. A few days later, something unexpected happened. She fell sick. Not dramatically. No doctors rushing in. Just a quiet fever. The household panicked. She hates weakness, one servant whispered. She won't let anyone see her like this. But she did. She let me in. I found her curled on the bed, her face pale, her hair undone. She looked nothing like the woman everyone feared. She looked small. I didn't call for you, she said weakly. I know, I replied gently, placing a cool cloth on her forehead. But someone has to care. She closed her eyes. For a moment, I thought she would yell. But she didn't. Why are you different? She asked quietly. I'm not, I said. I'm just not afraid to be kind. Her lips trembled. Just slightly that I stayed with her all night. I brought soup she barely touched. I wiped her forehead when sweat formed. I sat on the floor beside her bed, afraid to leave. At one point, she whispered. Everyone leaves. I didn't respond. I just stayed. The next morning, the billionaire himself came to check on her. I had only seen him from a distance before, tall, controlled, powerful. His eyes fell on me. Sharp. Observing. Who are you? He asked. Amina, I said softly. I'm the new maid. He nodded slowly. She doesn't allow new people near her, he said. But she allowed you. I lowered my gaze. I think, I said carefully, she just needed someone who wouldn't run. He didn't reply. But. His eyes followed me as I left the room. I felt it. Something had shifted. Later that day, she called for me again. She was sitting by the window, wrapped in a shawl. You stayed, she said. Yes. Why? I thought for a moment. Because when I was sick once, I said slowly, no one stayed for me. She swallowed. What happened to you? She asked. I hesitated. Another time, I said gently. She nodded. For the first time. She didn't order me. She asked. From that day on, things changed. Not dramatically. Not openly. But subtly. She started drinking the tea I made. She allowed me to sit quietly in the room. Sometimes, she spoke. About nothing. And everything. But peace never lasts in houses built on secrets. Because kindness makes people uncomfortable. And change always threatens power. I didn't know it yet. But someone was watching. Someone who didn't want her to soften. Someone who feared what she might become if she remembered how to feel. And I was becoming a problem. I still remember the first time I saw her truly vulnerable. It wasn't dramatic. No shouting. No tears falling openly. Just a quiet moment in a room that smelled of jasmine and old wood. She was standing near the window, staring at the rain falling outside. I didn't say anything. I simply poured her tea, placed it on the small table, and sat a few steps away. "Do you ever get lonely?" I asked quietly, almost afraid the words would scare her away. She turned slowly. Her eyes glimmered in the dim light. "Lonely," she repeated. "No. I don't feel lonely." But I saw it. In the way her shoulders slumped. In the tremble of her hands. In the brief pause before her words. She lied. And it was okay. I didn't judge. Days passed, and I noticed the subtle cracks in her armor. She would sometimes hum softly while arranging books. She would linger in front of the mirror, staring at her reflection, and sigh deeply. She rarely spoke, but when she did, her voice carried a weight no one else could hear. One evening, I accidentally knocked over a vase while dusting the shelves. I froze. My heart pounded. The vase shattered into tiny pieces on the marble floor. I expected fury. I expected a sharp, cold gaze. But instead, she bent down beside me. Picked up the largest pieces carefully. And said quietly, "Don't worry, accidents happen." It was the first time someone in that mansion had ever spoken to me like that, not as a maid, but as a person. I felt warmth spread in my chest. And I realized something I hadn't known before. Even the coldest hearts can be softened with care. But kindness is never simple. The billionaire noticed changes. He was always present in the background, observing, calculating. His eyes often followed me, watching how I interacted with her. I could feel his scrutiny in the way he spoke to the servants, in the way he frowned when I was near her. One night, he confronted me. "Why do you spend so much time with her?" he asked quietly, in a tone that was more curiosity than anger. She needed someone," I replied honestly. "Someone who doesn't fear her." He studied me. "You realize, this could backfire," he said. "People like her, they are dangerous when you touch their emotions." "I know," I said softly. "But I don't want her to suffer alone." He didn't say anything after that. But I could tell he was thinking, plotting, wondering if I was trouble. Then came the first hint of her past. It was a night when the mansion was quiet. I was bringing her a cup of warm milk. She was sitting near the fireplace, wrapped in a soft shawl, staring into the dancing flames. I hesitated. Something in her posture told me she was about to speak, something she had never spoken aloud. "My father," she whispered, voice barely audible. He left when I was very young." I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just listened. "He was harsh," she continued, tears forming in the corners of her eyes. "I never knew if he ever loved me. And my mother, she tried, but she was too weak to stop him." I felt a lump in my throat. The fiancé everyone feared had been a lonely, abandoned child once. I don't want anyone to see me weak," she admitted. "Because if they see that, they'll hurt me again." Her hands trembled as she spoke. And I knew why she had built walls around herself. I reached out, softly, and placed a hand on hers. "Then it's okay," I whispered. "You don't have to be alone anymore." She pulled back slightly. Her eyes studied me, suspicious. "Why are you not afraid of me?" she asked quietly. "I don't see a monster," I said honestly. "I see someone who has been hurt." For a long moment, she didn't speak. Then, quietly, almost inaudibly, she said, Maybe I like you." After that night, something changed permanently. She started trusting me slowly. Not completely. Not openly. but enough to let me see her human side. She laughed softly when no one else was around. She shared tiny details of her life, trips she wanted to take, dresses she had once loved, and memories that hurt her so much she had hidden them behind anger. And I listened. Because sometimes, listening is the most powerful thing you can offer. But not everyone was pleased. The other staff were wary. They whispered that I was too bold, too naive, too foolish. That the fiancé could turn on me at any moment. Even the billionaire seemed tense at times. His eyes would narrow when I approached her room. And sometimes, I caught him staring at us, as if he was waiting for something to go wrong. Yet, none of that mattered to me. Because I had made a choice. To be there for her. To show her kindness. To remind her that someone cared. Then, one day, the unexpected happened. I found a letter in her room. It was addressed to her, in delicate handwriting. Curiosity overwhelmed me. I opened it. Inside were words of betrayal, written by someone from her past. Someone who had promised love but caused pain instead. I froze. And in that instant, I realized, her fear, her coldness, her need for control. It all came from that pain. She had been trained to survive by shutting everyone out. But I had become the first person to touch that closed heart. That night, she confronted me. You read it, she said softly, eyes wide with anger and vulnerability. I can't let anyone see that letter. I'm sorry, I whispered. I wanted to understand. She looked at me for a long time. Then, slowly, she nodded. Maybe, you're the only one who can see me, like this, she admitted. I didn't speak. I just smiled gently. Because in that moment, I realized something profound. The fiancée everyone feared was not evil. She was simply hurting. And she had never been allowed to be human, but the mansion is a place of secrets. And secrets have a way of leaking out. I didn't know it yet, but someone had noticed the change in her. Someone who thrived on fear. Someone who had plans to manipulate the walls she had started to lower, and I had unknowingly stepped into a world far more dangerous than I had imagined. My name is Amina, and this is the story of the mansion, the fiancé, and how a simple act of kindness changed everything, or so I thought. I had never entered a house so quiet, yet so loud with tension. Every corner held secrets, every shadow whispered warnings. And yet, somehow, I felt drawn to her, not out of fear, not out of obligation, but out of understanding. She wasn't the monster everyone claimed. I could see it in her eyes. The cold exterior, the sharp commands, the fear she instilled in others, it was all armor. Behind it lay a story no one knew. One rainy afternoon, I was carrying a tray of tea up the grand staircase. The mansion was drenched in the sound of raindrops hitting the windows. The air smelled of wet earth and polished wood. I found her standing in the hallway, staring at a family portrait I hadn't noticed before. Do you recognize this? I asked gently, not wanting to offend. She didn't respond at first. Her eyes were distant. Then, slowly, a trembling began in her hand. She ran her fingers over the frame, brushing away the dust of years, as if trying to touch a memory long buried. It's my family, she whispered. Before everything went wrong. I sat down on a nearby chair, careful to stay silent. She didn't look at me. She didn't need to. I knew I had to give her space. They were cruel, she continued. My father, my mother, they taught me that love is weakness. That kindness is dangerous. That vulnerability means death. I swallowed hard. The words hit me harder than anything I had ever heard. And yet, they made sense. The fear I had seen, the coldness I had felt, it all came from this place. You had to survive, I said softly. And you did. Her eyes finally met mine. They were wet with unshed tears, glistening under the dim light of the hallway. Yes, she whispered. But surviving doesn't mean living. I learned to hide everything. Every feeling, every desire. I built walls. High walls. And now, I don't know how to take them down. The grand halls and thunder shook the mansion. She was pacing her room, clearly agitated. I can't do this anymore, she confessed. I can't keep pretending I'm invincible. I'm tired, Amina. Tired of fear. Tired of anger. Tired of everything. I reached out, placing a gentle hand on hers. It's okay to be tired. You don't have to carry it alone. She pulled away slightly, her eyes wide, vulnerable, and scared. Why are you here? Why do you care so much? Everyone else would run. They would leave. I don't run, I said. And I won't leave. Not now. Not ever. For the first time, I saw her lower a wall. Not completely, but enough to let me in. The mansion began to feel different. Slowly, subtly, warmth started to seep into its cold corners. She smiled more often when I was around, sometimes laughing at small, silly things. She began to trust me with tiny secrets, like a dress she had loved as a child, or a song her mother had taught her. But peace was fragile. Fragile in a place built on power and fear. One afternoon, I found a journal hidden behind a drawer in her room. Curiosity overtook me. Carefully, I opened it. Inside were pages filled with anger, sorrow, and longing. She had written about the betrayal she had faced, friends who had abandoned her, lovers who had lied, and family who had turned away. Every word was raw, every sentence a wound. And yet, among the pain, there were notes about hope. Notes about a desire to be understood, to be seen, to be loved without fear. I didn't know whether to read further or close it. I chose to leave it on the bed, trusting her privacy. Later that night, she caught me. You looked at it, she said softly, eyes searching mine. I only glanced, I admitted. I just wanted to understand, to know why you are the way you are. Her lips trembled. She didn't speak immediately. Then, finally, she whispered, maybe, you're the first person who ever tried to understand me. From that moment, our bond deepened. We spoke in hushed tones, shared small moments of laughter, and even the occasional argument over trivial things, like tea temperature or the way the curtains were drawn. Through it all, I learned the real her, the woman who had been forced to wear cruelty like armor, the woman who had once been hurt so deeply that trust seemed impossible, and the woman who, slowly, was learning that kindness could be a shield instead of a weapon. But the mansion's calm was deceptive. Rumors began to circulate among the staff. Whispers about favoritism, about secrets, about the changes in her behavior. Some feared the softening, others envied it. Even the billionaire's scrutiny became more intense. His eyes followed every interaction, his expressions unreadable, his intentions mysterious. And one night, I realized the truth: kindness in a house built on fear is dangerous. Because people who thrive on power don't like change. And someone was watching us. Waiting. Planning, yet, despite all warnings, despite the fear, despite the whispers of doom, I remained by her side. Because I had made a choice to see her as a human being, to see her beyond the walls of fear, and to be the first person who refused to run. And in that choice lay both salvation and danger. I am Amina, and I've learned that the quietest moments often hold the loudest storms. That night, the mansion became a storm all on its own. It started with a whisper. A voice from the staff quarters, quiet, almost lost under the chandelier's soft hum. She's gone too far, someone said. They've noticed. The change, it's dangerous. I didn't understand at first. I was upstairs, carefully folding her clothes, when the words reached me. A wave of dread washed over me. Dangerous. What did that mean? I walked quietly down the hall. The house felt different. Tense. Even the chandeliers seemed to flicker with unease. I reached the living area, and my heart stopped. The fiancée was there, standing in front of the large mirror, her hands trembling. Her elegant posture was gone. She looked small, fragile, terrified. Her breath was shallow. Her eyes darted around as if someone might appear at any moment. And in that instant, I understood, the fortress she had built around herself was beginning to crumble. I approached slowly. "It's okay," I whispered, reaching out. She flinched at my touch, but did not pull away. I can't," she said, voice breaking. "They're watching me. They know I'm..." Her words faltered. She could not finish the sentence. She sank to the floor, wrapping her arms around herself like a frightened child. I kneeled beside her, heart aching. "I'm here," I said softly. "No one can hurt you when I'm here." Her tears fell silently, hot and fast. I had never seen anyone like this. The woman everyone feared, this elegant, untouchable creature, was completely human and completely broken. For hours, she spoke. Not of commands, not of control. But of memories. Of betrayal. Of loneliness. Of a life that had taught her to fear love, kindness, and trust. "My father," she whispered, voice cracking. "He was cruel. My mother, powerless. They taught me to survive by hiding who I am. By being cold. By being untouchable. By fearing people before they can hurt me." I didn't interrupt. I only listened. She spoke of friends who had abandoned her, lovers who had lied, and mentors who had used her trust to gain power. Each word was a wound, and each wound had hardened her heart. And yet, I could see the girl beneath. The little girl who had once laughed freely. The young woman who had dreamed of a life full of warmth. The human she had been, before the world told her to armor herself. By dawn, her sobs had slowed. She rested her head against my shoulder, exhausted. You didn't run," she murmured. "I thought everyone leaves when they see me weak." "I'm not everyone," I said softly. "And you don't have to be afraid." Her hands trembled as she held mine. Maybe I can trust someone," she admitted, voice small, fragile. I squeezed her hand. "Yes. You can trust me." That morning, the mansion felt different. The servants whispered among themselves, eyes wary. "She's softening," one said. "She's letting someone see her, like that," another whispered. "And the billionaire, he's watching," the first added. Yes, he was watching. Always. I caught glimpses of him from afar, his tall figure leaning against the doorway, arms crossed, eyes narrowing. But this time, he didn't approach. Not yet. Something was stirring. And I feared it. Over the next few days, her trust in me grew. She let me accompany her to the garden, where she had once walked alone in silence. She shared stories of a childhood she had hidden, dreams she had buried, and fears she had never voiced. "I wanted someone to see me," she confessed one afternoon, sitting on a stone bench beneath the magnolia tree. "Not the girl they wanted me to be. Not the fiancée. Not the cold, untouchable woman everyone feared. But me, the real me." "You are seen," I whispered. "You are not alone anymore." For the first time in years, she smiled without pretense. A soft, genuine smile that lit her eyes, but peace in that house was fragile. One evening, as I was bringing her evening tea, I noticed a shadow move across the hall. I froze. It was him, the billionaire. His expression was unreadable, but the tension in the room was electric. "You've grown close," he said quietly, almost accusingly. "She's softening," I replied calmly. "She's human, like everyone else." He studied me for a long moment. "You don't understand," he finally said. "In this house, being human is dangerous." I didn't reply. I only watched as he turned and disappeared into the shadows. That night, she confided something terrifying. "They're planning something," she whispered. "I feel it. I can't explain, but I know someone doesn't want me, like this. Not soft. Not seen. Not vulnerable." I held her close. "Whatever happens," I said firmly, "I will not leave you. Not now. Not ever." She buried her face in my shoulder. "Amina. I don't know what's coming. But, thank you. For not running." The next day, the first crisis struck. A fire alarm blared through the mansion, shattering the fragile calm. Servants ran in panic. Smoke began to fill the hallway. Screams echoed as people scrambled to safety. I rushed to her room. She was standing frozen, eyes wide with fear. "Stay close," I shouted, taking her hand. "We're getting out." We navigated through the smoke-filled hallways. I guided her past burning curtains, shattered glass, and panicked staff. Every step was dangerous, every breath a struggle. And yet, she didn't falter. Not completely. Because I was there. Outside, the cool night air hit us like a wave. She collapsed onto the lawn, coughing and trembling. I wrapped a shawl around her shoulders. "You're safe," I whispered. "It's over." Her eyes met mine. Full of tears, full of fear, but also relief. "You didn't run," she said softly. "I'm still here, because of you." That night, as the mansion smoldered in its aftermath, I realized something profound. Fear can destroy. Kindness can save, and in that mansion, in that fragile, tense world of power, secrets, and pain, we had created something impossible: trust. For the first time, she had allowed herself to be seen. Vulnerable. Real. Human. And for the first time, I felt that my presence mattered. That I wasn't just a maid. That I wasn't invisible. I had become the first person in that house to touch her heart without fear. And in doing so, I had stepped into a world far more dangerous than I had imagined. Because someone in that mansion would not allow her to feel this way. And that was only the beginning. My name is Amina, and sometimes, being invisible allows you to see the things no one else dares to notice. By now, I had grown used to the quiet fear that dominated the mansion. The way people moved like shadows, careful not to upset the fragile balance of power. The way even the walls seemed to listen. And yet, amidst all that fear, I had found something unexpected, a connection. A fragile, delicate bond with the woman everyone called untouchable, the billionaire's fiancée. The days after the fire were tense. The mansion staff whispered behind closed doors, speculating about what had caused it, who was at fault, and why she hadn't blamed anyone. The billionaire seemed more distant than ever, watching everything with sharp eyes, as if measuring the distance between trust and betrayal. But she smiled more. She laughed, small and cautious at first, and then a little louder each day. And I was there, witnessing it. Being part of it. One evening, as the sun set behind the towering estate, casting golden light across the gardens, she called me to the terrace. "You've stayed," she said softly, eyes on mine. "Yes," I replied. "You didn't run. Even when it got dangerous." Her voice trembled. "I thought, everyone leaves me when I'm vulnerable." "You're not alone," I said gently. "You don't have to be." She looked at me, searching, perhaps for some hidden meaning in my words. Then she did something unexpected. She reached for my hand. A simple gesture, but it carried more weight than anything else in the house. That night, she spoke of her fears. "I've been so used to pretending," she whispered. "Pretending I'm strong, that I'm untouchable, that I can handle everything. I forgot what it meant to be human. To let someone see me. To let someone care." I listened quietly. Her words were heavy with the kind of pain only silence can hide. I could feel the weight of years of betrayal, isolation, and fear pressing down on her. I want to be free of it, she said, voice barely above a whisper. But I don't know how. You've already started, I said softly. By letting me in. By trusting me. By being brave enough to cry. She looked at me then, fully, vulnerably. And I knew something had shifted permanently. The billionaire watched, of course. Always present, always calculating. But he didn't intervene. Not yet. Perhaps he realized that some changes are inevitable. Or perhaps he didn't understand the bond growing between us, but he would soon. Weeks passed. She allowed me into parts of her life no one else had seen. We walked in the gardens at dawn, shared quiet meals, and spoke about dreams she had long buried. She told me about her childhood home, the rooms she had loved, the laughter she had missed, the people who had let her down. I used to believe love was a weakness, she said one morning, watching the sunlight reflect off the fountain. But maybe it isn't. Maybe kindness is stronger than fear. I smiled gently. Yes, I said. And you're learning it. Her eyes softened. And I want to learn it from someone I can trust, she whispered. I reached out and touched her hand. Then you already have, I said, but the mansion was not without danger. Not everyone approved of the changes. The staff still whispered. Some feared the softening of her heart. Some envied it. And the billionaire, his intentions remained unclear. I could feel the tension when he entered a room, when he watched us from the distance, when he spoke to her with carefully measured words. He had power. He had influence. He had secrets. And secrets in that house could destroy everything. One afternoon, she confided in me a fear she had never shared. Someone is watching, she whispered. I feel it. I can't explain it, but I know. And I don't know what they'll do if they see me, like this. Vulnerable. Kind. Human. I held her close. You're safe with me, I said. I will not leave you. Not now. Not ever. She buried her face in my shoulder, trembling. Thank you, she whispered. For staying. It was a moment of complete trust. The first time she allowed herself to truly rely on another human being. That night, I stayed in her room until she fell asleep. I watched her breathing, the rise and fall of her chest, the way her fingers twitched slightly as if in dreams she had never dared to have. And I realized something profound. I wasn't just a maid. I wasn't just an employee. I was the first person who had seen her completely, without judgment, without fear, without pretense. And in that, I had become part of her life in a way no one else had. The days that followed were quiet but full of meaning. She laughed more freely, trusted more openly, and allowed herself to enjoy the small things, sunlight through the window, the taste of a warm drink, the sound of birds in the garden. And I felt the weight of responsibility, the fragility of trust, and the depth of connection. But even as we found small happiness, I knew this was just the beginning. The mansion held secrets. The billionaire held power. And not everyone would accept the change we had created. I didn't know what the future held. I only knew that I would stay by her side, no matter what. Because kindness, once given, cannot be taken back. And trust, once earned, cannot be easily broken. Fear ruled the mansion. Power controlled the mansion. But kindness had found a way. And in that fragile, delicate light of understanding, a bond was born. A bond that could survive storms, betrayal, and even the darkest secrets. For the first time, she was human. For the first time, she trusted someone. For the first time, the mansion felt like a place where hearts could heal. And I knew, deep down, that whatever came next, I would face it with her. Together.